Life is Strange is an oddly beautiful game. Even setting the story aside, the graphical style, while not technically impressive, perfectly fits the theme of art, color, photography, and perspective, and the music does such a great job setting the emotional tone of each scene that you'll have the soundtrack downloaded in no time. The gameplay is kind of hard to describe. When I was growing up, I really liked to read pop-up books. It was just like reading a regular book, but with interesting and creative ways of displaying the visuals and the added enjoyment of being interactive even in such a minor way. It may have been a linear story, but you felt like you were participating. I think of games like this in the same way. You have the story and the dialogue, but it has the added bonus of images, animation, and interactivity, and it mixes all of those into a full-on video game. That said, and this may be the crux of whether or not you would enjoy playing it, Life is Strange is a linear story. It's not a choose-your-own-adventure book, it's more like that pop-up book. You have a lot of options in terms of the choices you make, and that flavors the game as you play it, but the core of the story does not change based on this interactivity. I bring this up because this is the first thing you see when you launch the game, which is both entirely justified and I think a little deceptive. Your choices do have an impact, but with a few notable exceptions, the only differences they make are minor dialogue changes that are essentially just a reference to the choice you made earlier. Some earlier choices go so far as to make it easier or more difficult to convince a character to go along with you later, but that's about it in terms of consequences for your choices.
Nathan Prescott had a gun in the girls' bathroom yesterday.
Before I get into spoiler territory, I want to go over the core of the game, just in case you like what you hear and you want to experience it for yourself before I talk about it, which I highly recommend if you have the time. Life is Strange is about a high school girl named Max Caulfield. In the very beginning, Max learns that she can time travel into the very recent past, generally up to a minute or so, although there's never really a timer to show that. Most of the game involves Max walking around and interacting with various people and objects. Occasionally there will be one of two types of choices to make, essentially minor and major choices, but I'll get into those later.
Could I, ask you a question?
After you make a choice, you can see the immediate repercussions of them, and then if you desire, you can rewind time to before you made the choice and make a different choice and see that result as well. This creates an extremely unique twist on a dialogue system, as you nearly always know the immediate results before you proceed, but you have to try to weigh what you believe the long-term consequences will be. You can also use learned information from one choice to answer or ask informed questions after rewinding and starting the conversation again, shown here as underlined options. Using this system, the game starts off very lighthearted. Each chapter, however, the game gets progressively darker, forcing you to deal with some very harsh situations. Plus, it has one of the most surprising twists I've seen in any game.
But this isn't anime or a video game.
There are going to be spoilers from here on out, and I'm going to spoil the entire story, so if any of this sounds like your kind of game, then I highly encourage you to stop watching and play it first. You can get the first episode for free, and the rest of the game is generally very cheap, though it's worth every penny regardless. I should also mention before I get started that I'm not a professional writer, nor do I do much design work for video games, so all of my criticisms and suggestions are anecdotal. I'd also like to mention that although this critique may come off as largely negative, Life is Strange has a 96% positive review on Steam, which is a rating that I believe it earned, so all of my complaints and criticisms fit into that 4% margin. Lastly, I just want to point out that I'm writing this review prior to playing Before the Storm, Life is Strange 2, and I also did not play it through with the developer commentary as I wanted to approach this from how I felt while playing without the bias of what the developers had intended. Before the actual story starts, you wake up in the middle of a crazy storm with no idea how you got there or where there is. You head towards a nearby lighthouse, and on the way you notice that this isn't some normal storm, it's a giant tornado. After watching it for a moment, a boat hits the lighthouse and appears to crush you. You wake up from your vision in a classroom during a lecture, and have a chance to get familiar with the controls. The main character is Max, a high school girl who had moved away from her hometown 5 years ago and just recently returned to finish high school at a private school. You are quickly introduced to the other main characters. Chloe, a long-lost friend who has turned into a punk. Nathan, a crazy gun-wielding rich kid whose parents basically own the town.
Worry about yourself, Max Caulfield.
Victoria, your typical spoiled brat.
Now, why don't you go fuck yourselfie?
And Mr. Jefferson, the photography teacher doing his best to deal with all of his troubled students. The game jumps right in and shows you that you have the ability to rewind time short distances. After your class, you head to the bathroom to calm down. While there, you wander out of sight to take a photo of a butterfly that flew in, before witnessing a fight between Chloe and Nathan.
That's my family, not me.
Oh, boo-hoo, poor little rich kid.
In which Nathan ends up shooting Chloe with a gun that he had on him. In a panic, you accidentally go back in time and end up in the classroom scene from before. After acknowledging that she can now rewind time by using it to fix her broken camera, Max panics and tries to get back to the bathroom in order to save Chloe, although it should be noted that Max doesn't know it's Chloe yet. You're stopped by Jefferson, who believes that you're stalling to get out of answering a challenging question. You use your new rewind power to give him the correct answer so you don't need to talk to him after class.
Somebody has been reading as well as posing. Nice work, Max.
I'm not really sure why she was in such a rush now, given that she had plenty of time before, but maybe she just isn't thinking clearly. She did just watch somebody get shot. So you head back to the bathroom and for some reason wait until Nathan and Chloe show up and get in their fight before wondering how you're going to save her.
Punk ass, would they? No way.
Don't ever touch me again, freak!
Immediately after exiting the bathroom, the security guard starts hassling you for being in the bathroom during a fire alarm, even though you left just after you pulled it. You encounter your first major choice here with the principal, to rat out Nathan or to keep it to yourself. This is the first point that you get to see how the choices impact the future of the story, as Max will comment that maybe she should rewind and choose one of the other options. The major choices are shown with this flickering screen, while minor choices only show this little note at the top. Minor choices can show up at random times as well. Like here, you're just watering your plant, and this action will have consequences! No matter what you choose with the principal, you then head outside and have a chance to interact with the other side characters and start to learn their stories. It should be noted too that although you pulled the fire alarm, and the security guard, principal, and Nathan seem to know this, and you even told the principal that you were in the exact spot the alarm was pulled, broken glass and all, you are never questioned or reprimanded for this beyond this initial hassling. Outside, your friend Warren texts you, and you now have a new objective. Get a USB drive from your room and deliver it to Warren. There are some interesting exchanges out here. For example, you can talk to Brooke about drones and reveal that Max is completely clueless about them.
You read too many conspiracy sites.
Then you can rewind and read the box.
What a complicated name for such a tiny drone.
Yeah, such a complicated name.
That looks like a high-fly drone, model B400 EVO.
You're full of surprises. Why would you know that?
Yeah, why would you know that? And then suddenly, you're an expert on them.
I love aerial photography. Drones are perfect for that, especially those with great range.
You head back to your room, but you're blocked by Victoria. She won't move because you upset her in class, and instead of just going around to the front of the building, waiting, or finding literally any other way to get in, you set up this elaborate prank to get a paint can to fall and splash her, just after rigging the sprinklers to go off to get her to move into the correct position. This exceedingly complicated plan ends with the payoff of her letting you pass, but not before another major choice: to make fun of her or to try to make nice, since she couldn't put together that you rigged the whole situation.
And no filter needed before I post this.
You head to your room and find out the drive was taken by your friend Dana. Heading to Dana's room, you're stopped by Juliet, who believes her boyfriend is cheating on her with Dana and is holding her hostage in her room until she admits it. Long story short, it was just Victoria messing with her. Look, remember before when I said this game starts off lighthearted? This is sort of what I meant. This is all just filler background information that's fun enough in the moment but not really interesting in the long run. And all of this is just to force you to interact with some of the key side characters, which is important later, but also isn't. Moving on, you get the flash drive and head towards the parking lot where Warren is waiting for you. On the way, you see that security guard harassing a girl named Kate, and you have another major choice: take a photograph of the situation or intervene on Kate's behalf. I'm honestly not sure why you couldn't do both in this situation, but whatever. If you choose the photograph option, even after the guard walks away, Max doesn't even apologize for not getting involved. Kate sarcastically thanks Max for helping, and Max just stares at her blankly until she walks away, and then she remarks to herself that she could always just rewind time and do it differently. You finally meet up with Warren in the parking lot, and you're physically assaulted by Nathan, who thinks you ratted him out. This is where the on-rails aspect of the game starts to show through a bit, because even if you didn't tell the principal about Nathan, this scene still happens. Seriously, you hid until he left, you kept the principal and security guard in the dark, and no one else saw you, yet he just knows you were there. Anyway, Chloe nearly runs you over with her truck, and then she rescues you.
Max? Chloe?
Warren intervenes to help your escape, and you just abandon him while he's getting beaten down by Nathan, the guy who was threatening to murder someone last time you saw him, but I'm sure he'll be alright. You have a long, awkward conversation with Chloe where she guilts you for not keeping in contact when you left before. This is the first actual problem I'd like to bring up. Max never really explains why she didn't keep in contact with Chloe when she left. She apparently moved away and never called or texted Chloe for 5 years, despite them being best and seemingly only friends, and then even after she came back and has been having trouble making new friends, she still didn't try to contact her for months. She mentions Chloe a few times in her notebook, but never really explains what happened. So when Chloe confronts you here, it's just like, yeah, I did do that, and I was a terrible friend, and I don't know why. And then you have this option, and there's no real answer. And no matter which choice you pick, she just keeps on grilling you.
I know things were tough on you when I left.
Anyway, you get to her house and catch up. You get the chance to explore and find out that Chloe's stepdad, revealed later, or maybe earlier or something, he's the asshole security guard from the school. You also spend some time using your time travel ability to solve really easy problems with unnecessarily complicated solutions.
Yes!
You return to Chloe's room and find out that you can't fix your camera that was broken when Nathan attacked you. Chloe recognizes the butterfly from the bathroom and acknowledges that you saved her.
You took this photo, you brat?
In exchange, she gives you a new camera.
I want you to have it.
David comes back and Chloe tries to get you to hide. You actually have a lot of options here, and they all play out differently. The most important part is towards the end, David slaps Chloe across the face, and you can either jump in or stay out of it. No matter what you choose, you end up at the lighthouse, the one from your vision, except in this case there's no tornado. Chloe explains her situation with Nathan, and you end up having another storm vision. This time you see a newspaper and find out that the storm is coming in a couple of days.
That's only 4 days away. Oh no.
You break the vision, and you're back with Chloe, who you finally explain the time traveling to.
I discovered I could reverse time.
It starts snowing, and Max's first thought is that it's climate change for some reason. She then follows that up by saying that maybe a storm is coming, and now Chloe wants to hear more. The episode ends with an amazing montage that cuts to a lot of the characters that you've met and their reactions to the snowfall. Culminating with a scene showing the edges of red notebooks with some names on them, the last one being Rachel. This would probably be a good time to mention that after Max left and completely abandoned Chloe for no reason, Chloe eventually got a new friend named Rachel, who was written in to be this sort of perfect person, easily fitting in with every group and being friends with everyone. At first, I thought it was just that the class was emotionally scarred and pretending like she fit in since she was missing and everyone assumed dead. But too much of the dialogue includes very specific references, so I actually think she was meant to be this sort of flawless person. I also had a theory that Rachel might also have the time travel ability and was using it to be friends with everyone, but as far as I'm aware, that's not the case. Anyway, she went missing a few weeks ago, and Chloe went around posting millions of missing person flyers in town. This scene at the end is especially important because it's the first indication that something bigger might be at work here. And that's the end of Chapter 1. The only other thing I'll mention is the music. The music in this game is perfectly tailored to every scene. Whomsoever's job it was to find the perfect songs for each scene did a phenomenal job. Now that we've gotten a lot of the background out of the way, we should be able to skip through this a lot faster. Chapter 2 is all about a video going around the internet of your religious friend Kate drunkenly acting out at a party. You ask her about it early, where it's clear she's very depressed about it, and she basically confirms that she was drugged and that Nathan led her away from the party under the pretense of helping her home. You can tell her to go to the police or to wait, and then you head out to meet Chloe at a diner. You meet her mother, and then you show off her new powers to Chloe by telling her what's in her pocket and predicting the future.
You predicted a cockroach on the jukebox?
As you go to leave, you get a phone call from Kate, and it's another major choice, to either answer it, leaving Chloe to get in a fight with her mother, or to ignore it and leave the diner with Chloe. This is yet another one of those choices where you could have easily done both. It's a mobile phone, just walk outside and answer it. You head to a junkyard and you play around with your powers, helping Chloe shoot bottles.
Aim a bit to the right.
Someone named Frank shows up and steals the gun, talking about how Chloe owes him a lot of money.
Ah, Christ. You're more like Abbott and Costello.
You end up walking along a railroad track, and Chloe gets stuck. This is another scene that has several different ways to resolve it, and although they have essentially the same outcome, I really enjoy that you aren't locked into any one solution. You head back to school and talk to some more people. On the way to class, you bump into Kate trying to get help from Mr. Jefferson, and she leaves in tears. You can talk to him after, where he judges you for the choices that you've made up to this point.
If Mr. Madsen claims you might be a pot dealer as he did, should I believe him?
You head into class, but before it starts, you find out that Kate is about to jump off the school roof. You of course attempt to rescue her, using your rewind power to get closer and closer, but then it starts to fail. How inconvenient. And then you somehow just freeze time instead. This Deus Ex Machina is at least visually very cool. You hold the moment until you get to the rooftop where you confront Kate, and she judges you on how much you've helped her and how much trivia you can remember from when you were snooping around in her dorm earlier.
I'm glad to hear you worry about me.
I was admittedly amazed to find out that you can fail this, and the game continues after she dies. This may actually be the biggest impact to the game going forward. Alternatively, if you answer her questions correctly, you can get her to back down and save her.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
The game had already shifted from its cute, lighthearted beginning, but the end of Chapter 2 is really where it took its first dark turn and shows you that it isn't messing around. The chapter ends in the principal's office, where you have the option to blame one of 3 people.
I'm so proud of the way Blackwell pulled together to save a young girl's life.
Nathan for drugging her at the party, Chloe's dad, the security guard, for bullying her, or the teacher, Mr. Jefferson, for making her cry.
All I know is that Kate was at a party and Nathan dosed her.
No matter who you choose, it shows a brief clip of you and Warren sitting outside being surprised by an eclipse that wasn't supposed to happen.
Max, there was no eclipse scheduled today. I would know. I would.
Followed by another great montage of the characters involved at the principal's office and a few others. It once again ends with those red notebooks, but this time it pans around to show another notebook with a photo of Kate on it, showing now that they're somehow linked. Chapter 3 goes by fairly quickly. We'll call this chapter the recovery from the emotional side of the game. It starts off with Max walking around talking to people, mostly mourning the death of Kate or near death of Kate, and just soaking in their reactions.
Better than Kate. I just can't believe she would even attempt suicide.
Chloe decides she wants to get to the bottom of this, and the two of you decide to break into the principal's office and find clues. Despite having the keys to the building, the principal apparently has his own unique key, so Chloe tries to pick the lock.
I might as well test out my thief skill.
In the meantime, you text Warren and he instructs you on how to make a bomb. You collect the supplies, make the bomb, and blow open the door. I guess hoping that no one would hear it, and that it wouldn't start a fire, or any other horrible thing that could happen when an inexperienced person makes a crude explosive in a soda can on the fly.
That was so fucking cool!
Anyway, the door is open, but an alarm goes off. Darn, and you were being so stealthy up to this point. This is another section I have a problem with, but I'm going to save that for the end. You enter the principal's room, rewind to before you blew the door, and then just unlock it from the inside.
Welcome to my domain.
You read through his files and get a little more background information before Chloe stumbles onto some computer files that link Nathan and David in incriminating ways.
That's a bad sign.
As you're about to leave, Chloe suggests you steal the handicapped student fund to repay Frank, and you also steal the keys for the Blackwell pool.
The Blackwell pool is ours.
You go for a midnight swim and some police show up, and then you have to escape.
Hide!
I heard something over here.
Let's bail.
The next scene is waking up back at Chloe's place.
Photobomb!
You do some reminiscing and talk to her mother, and then you break into David's laptop and look at his files. Most of it is him keeping tabs on various students, including Rachel with pictures of her and Frank together, Kate, and now you as well. You eat breakfast and David returns home. He starts off angrily picking a fight, but you and Chloe start yelling at him for being paranoid. At this point, you actually have another option to switch and side with David for some reason. Assuming you back Chloe, even her mother gets upset with him for all the surveillance, and he leaves to go stay at a hotel for a while. You and Chloe head back to the diner where Frank is and steal his keys and break into his RV looking for more evidence. You have this option to needlessly injure his dog, and then you enter and look around. You can find the gun from earlier, as well as his drug-selling journal with a photo in it showing that he and Rachel were more than just friends.
I can't believe she was banging Frank.
Chloe drops you back at school, and you end up back in your room. You start looking at a photo from your childhood, and the game goes straight up Butterfly Effect the movie, and you go back in time to the photograph. So, a bit more backstory here. Chloe's dad died in a car accident when they were kids, and later his mom remarried to David. Well, this picture that you just happened to go back in time to was taken minutes before her dad got in the car accident that killed him. Max takes this opportunity in the past to fix it by saving her dad. She does this by tossing his keys outside so he has to take the bus.
The stop is right down the street.
This I can do. Good call, Max.
It then fast forward back to present day, where apparently you became the coolest girl in school. You get on a bus and head back to visit Chloe, and there's a big reveal where she's in a wheelchair. She had a great life for a while, but she ended up in a car accident of her own that left her quadriplegic. We can actually skip almost all of the next section, because it's basically irrelevant.
There's not much to say.
It's all about hanging out with a disabled Chloe and feeling sorry for her. It's sort of interesting. I didn't really find it fun in the moment, but it doesn't really matter anyway because you go back to the same photo and let her dad die the way he had before, thus restoring the future to normal.
I'll always have your back. Always.
I think this whole section was to prepare you for a choice you have to make later, but I don't think it had the impact that it was supposed to, at least not on me. You come to in Chloe's room during the day. Apparently time had continued while you were in the photograph and you don't remember anything of the day, or maybe you were supposed to have just been daydreaming about it, not clear on that, but you play it off like you were dazed.
Not anymore. I'm just spaced out too.
You look around the garage and grab some files from David before heading off with Chloe. If you saved Kate before, you have a quick scene where you visit her in the hospital. Interestingly, there is no alternative scene if you didn't save her, you just skip it.
Now that you're here, I'm doing even better.
You then head to Nathan's room with the intent of finding evidence there. His room is super creepy, and you find a phone and some other information in a baggie taped to the back of his futon. The weird part is that they never really comment on why he would have his phone in a baggie taped to the back of a chair. Given that he basically has immunity in the school and town, I don't know why he would be hiding it that way, or hiding it at all for that matter. It's also a little weird that he apparently set his chair up in such a way that he can't see his projector. Now that you have the phone, you head to Frank's RV and convince him to give you his client list for drugs. You can do this either through diplomacy, or you can shoot him and also his dog. In any case, you now have the information you need, and you head back to Chloe's to solve the puzzle. You find a lot of evidence pointing to a barn in the middle of nowhere that happens to be owned by Nathan's parents. You head there alone and find a hidden bunker underground. You make your way through some very easy puzzles and explore the creepy dungeon. In there, you find the red notebooks. Opening the notebooks, you find photos of a drugged-out Kate in various staged photos, and then of Rachel. It concludes with the two of you finding photos of Rachel being buried in the junkyard.
The junkyard! Max, we have to find that spot now!
You take off and head to the junkyard and find out that Rachel is indeed dead and buried there.
Chloe, stop!
No, Rachel, no, please not her.
After the scene ends, you're back in the school where the Vortex Club party's going on. Before you get inside, you notice that everyone is looking at the sky and you see 2 moons up there. Chloe could not be less interested, and you head into the party and look for Nathan. Skipping this section because you walk around and don't find him, Mr. Jefferson shows up and announces that Victoria won the photo contest that had been going on.
Victoria Chase.
Max laments not even entering, and you head off in search of Nathan elsewhere. On the way, Chloe gets a text from Nathan that he's currently disposing of the evidence that you found in the junkyard. Before trying to figure out why someone would send a text like that, they head back to try to stop him. Back at the junkyard, you find Rachel's body is still there, and you look around confused.
She's still there.
Okay, let's pause this for a second. Remember in the beginning when I said that Life is Strange is one of the best twists I've seen in a game? Well, this is that moment. If you have any intention on playing this game, please stop now. Alright, so looking over Rachel's body, suddenly Max gets stuck in the neck by a needle. You try to call out, but not in time, and you have to watch as this mystery person shoots Chloe in the head. They walk over and look down at you, and it's revealed to be Mr. Jefferson before going black. I think making him the villain was perfectly executed. Even if you figured it out ahead of time, which I admit that I did not, He's played off as such a good character, and yet even behind that, his motivations actually make sense in the context of that character. It also explains some of the weird things that you discount from earlier, like why Mr. Jefferson would be in the lineup after the incident with Kate. As Chapter 5 rolls in, Jefferson's taking photos of you and talking about his motivation for all this.
Simply put, I'm obsessed with the idea of capturing that moment. Innocence evolves into corruption.
He throws a selfie at you, the one that you took in the beginning, complaining about how bad it is.
You can do so much better.
And you use that to go back and text David about the bunker, referred to in the game as the dark room.
For once, David, I'm praying you'll overreact to this as much as everything else.
Returning to present time, you're now on a plane heading to an exhibit, as in that timeline you ended up winning the photo contest.
You're okay, Max. You're safe. On a plane.
At the exhibit, you get a call from Chloe. She's stuck in the middle of the tornado.
You saw the tornado, it's coming!
And you use your winning photo to go back in time and tear it up.
Sorry, San Francisco. Chloe comes first.
This puts you back in the dark room with Jefferson. He loads up a needle with the intent on killing you, but before he can, David breaks in, and the next bit is probably my favorite sequence in the game.
David, watch out!
How? How did you know that?
The reason being, there are quite a few different things to try, and although there's only one solution, each thing you try has a different interaction in ways other characters adjust to what you said. Even the timing makes a difference.
David, watch out!
Time to shut the fuck up, okay?
At the end, David saves you, and you have a nice conversation where you finally see eye to eye.
I try not to use my service as an excuse, but it's hard to come home after war.
You find that Jefferson burned all your photos, so you can't go back and save Chloe using them. You steal Jefferson's car keys and head to the diner. On the way, you call Warren and ask if he still has a photo that he took at the Vortex party. He does, and he'll give it to you, but the tornado is already wrecking the town and you have to drive through it. You have to get out and walk because of all the wreckage, and you potentially save a bunch of people along the way. At the diner, you tell Warren about your ability to rewind time, and not only is he not shocked by this, he tells you that the storm is probably your fault.
Going back in time is what caused the storm.
So you use the photo to go back and warn Chloe about Jefferson.
Stop and listen for once!
This results in you ending up on the beach with Chloe later, attempting to avoid the storm. You go into a blackout and wake up in a dream world. A lot of really random and disturbing things start happening.
I feel like totally haunted by the eyes of those sad mothers and children.
Max, why did you stop me from jumping? What kind of friend are you?
I just wanted to know if you'd like to spend the rest of your life in my darkroom. Your purity inspires me so much.
It culminates with you ending up in the diner with time frozen, and you talk to another copy of yourself.
Who are you? Holy shit, are you serial? I'm you, dumbass.
She claims to be the you from another timeline that you abandoned and reminds you that the storm is all your fault and that you can't fix anything.
Your big plan was to trick people into thinking you give a rat's ass.
You then go through a reminiscing scene.
Oh, we could cruise everywhere in this bad boy.
And finally end up back at the lighthouse in the current time with Chloe. You look out and see that the tornado is headed for town, and Max laments that using her power is what caused it.
Storm! I caused this! I caused all of this!
Chloe tries to help and finally decides that the best idea would be for Max to go back in time to before she used her power and let Chloe die, giving you your final choice of the game, to sacrifice Chloe or to sacrifice the town. This is where I'm going to end the review and start the critique, because I have several problems with this choice in particular, and these two options tie directly into what I feel is a core flaw behind Life is Strange. First, I'd like to address an issue that I saw in a few reviews: the lack of impact. Life is Strange is a game about choices, so it actually seems fitting that what amounts to a boss battle in this game comes down to a choice. However, no choices you make up to this point impact this part of the narrative in any way. And while that's not entirely true, for reasons I'll go into in a moment, it's technically true, and I think a lot of people base their criticism of the ending on that fact. To some, and I can include myself, this ending failed because the narrative weight of the decisions you made up to this point are nearly meaningless. My belief is that Don't Nod was trying to use the decisions you made throughout the game to keep you emotionally invested in saving the people in the town, but in my opinion, they failed. And regardless of what they were going for, looking back on this choice, it's abundantly clear that the decision ended up being do what you want or do what the game wants. Because the trouble here is, this isn't a true choice. For all the significance that Life is Strange puts on the choices you have, there is a correct answer here, or at least an answer the developer intended. If you choose to save the town, you get this beautiful cinematic of Chloe dying and Max and others mourning her, clearly trying to move on together. However, if you choose to sacrifice the town, you get a short clip of Max and Chloe wordlessly driving through the town after the tornado passes, and a fade to black. No information or follow-up on any lasting effects of the storm or time travel might be having. They don't even bother to stop to look for survivors. I feel like there's something fundamental missing here. The game goes to great lengths to remind you that Chloe and Max were long-lost friends, but you seem to have no other friends from before you left. This is probably intentional to make her seem like kind of an outcast, but I see this as a pretty big missed opportunity and also contradictory to this final choice that you have to make. You should have had several alternate friendships that you're cultivating on the side, which would have done a lot more to really integrate you into the town and make the decision carry far more impact when you have the choice to sacrifice it at the end. It wouldn't just be weighing the lives of a couple people you met and manipulated into liking you a few days ago versus your soulmate best friend, it would have been weighing all of your other friends versus your best friend. The other problem that I have with this ending is a logic issue, and this may be my biggest criticism of the game in total. After everything the two of them have been through these past couple of days, they haven't figured out how to save the town. Max has pretty much been told that using her time travel ability is what's causing the storm, although no one can really prove it, she just sort of believes them.
You've left a trail of death and suffering behind you.
Chloe, obviously terrified and not thinking clearly, suggests that Max go back in time to before she used her power and let her die, hoping that would end the cycle. When I first saw this choice, I thought it was great. The whole game had been about saving Chloe, and now you have to weigh her life against potentially saving the town.
Look at how many times I've almost died or actually died around you.
Morally, it's obvious you should pick the town, one life against many and all that, and I actually expected that to be the wrong choice. Because in my mind, time traveling to the past to stop yourself from time traveling to the past doesn't make any sense. So letting Chloe die would change nothing, and you'd have to find another way to save the city, maybe even with the storm getting even stronger. You know, consequences. But no, letting Chloe die just fixes everything. Nathan gets arrested and interrogated, and Jefferson gets caught. Max is seen at Chloe's funeral and notices the blue butterfly again. Yet back on the flip side of that choice, everything you've been told up to this point is that using your powers to alter fate is what's causing the storm. It only made sense to me that making the choice of finally abandoning your powers and accepting fate would have been the option that got rid of the storm, or at least started weakening it or something. Like, that would have been a great moral to the story. Not everything needs to be fixed. You have to accept consequences. That's not what happens at this ending. She's going back in time to fix the future again, just like every other time. Keep in mind, Max retains all the information about her life before she rewinds, which means all of Max's actions after the bathroom would be colored by all this knowledge and foresight that she has of everything going on around her. Unless the only thing the universe cared about was making a dead Chloe, the timeline still isn't going to be fixed. Quick side note, is that butterfly that keeps popping up supposed to be her soul or something? I know it's a reference to the butterfly effect, but it's something that I read in a lot of reviews that I've seen. Given that it shares the color of her hair and it's a symbol throughout the whole game, I think that's what Don't Nod had in mind, but if that's true, it doesn't make any sense. You see it before Chloe dies, that's what led you to taking the photograph and witnessing Chloe get shot. And in case you missed my subtle point there, a big reason that Chloe ends up shot in the scene is because Max is hidden while taking the photograph of the butterfly. If Max hadn't seen it, Nathan and Chloe would have bumped into Max when they busted in, and since the bathroom wasn't empty, they wouldn't have had the exchange leading to her death in the first place. Max also seems to have her own spirit animal, a deer that shows up now and then that's also never really explained. Samuel, the janitor, explains to you that it's your spirit animal.
That's your spirit animal.
But it's always shown in the game to be transparent. Only Max can see it, and she can't take a photo of it. The butterfly, however, is very much there, and a lot of the plot revolves around the fact that Max took a photo of it and other people can see it.
And I'll snag this picture as a symbol of our reunion. Cool?
So let's take this one step further, because there's a weird chicken and the egg thing going on too. Max was having visions of the tornado before she learned she had the ability to rewind, before she ever used the rewind ability. So what the hell is the universe doing to her here? She was given a vision of a tornado, which caused her to go to the bathroom in a panic and witness Chloe die, which caused her to accidentally rewind time, which caused her to save Chloe, which apparently caused the tornado in her visions to become real, which became the plot for the whole game. Another issue I'd like to bring up, throughout the game, Max is able to use her rewind power to teleport. This is most notable when you use it to get into the locked principal's office and is then identified by Chloe, so there isn't some kind of memory wipe or anything that allows people to ignore this.
I have no clue how the hell you got in there, but you did it, sister.
You also frequently use your rewind power in front of people, sometimes canonically, and no one ever mentions this or even notices it. There are also several times in the game where using your rewind power actually does rewind your location as well, so even that isn't consistent. In fact, the very first time you use your rewind ability here in the beginning, Max finds herself back in the classroom instead of just earlier in the bathroom and has to walk all the way back to save Chloe. You also retain whatever items you're holding when you rewind, adding another strange level to this. Here, you go around and collect items to make a bomb, and when you return after assembling it, you can rewind to back before you left. So in Chloe's eyes, you talk really intently about finding keys and picking a lock, and then you just whip out a bomb and blow up the door instead.
Yes! Time to blow shit up!
There are several other much smaller and even more petty issues that I have with the game, but I think this addresses the bigger ones. My point here is not to say that Life is Strange is a bad game, quite the contrary. I love this game. My violin teacher once told me while practicing that the closer a note is to being correct, the worse it sounds until you get the note right. I think the same principle applies here too. These issues only feel big to me because the game was so close to being something perfect that they just feel amplified. At any rate, I hope at the very least you enjoyed this. Maybe I'll try making another one.
But something goes. Oh.